Some people collapse under the weight of their own actions long before any truth comes to the surface. When a dishonest plan starts falling apart, panic exposes everything. Voices tremble, stories slip, secrets spill. The moment pressure rises, those who plotted in the dark begin revealing details they once guarded with confidence. Not because you forced it out of them, but because guilt cracks even the strongest ego. When a person operates from insecurity, they confess without realizing it. Their emotions betray them before their words do. That breakdown becomes the clearest proof that something was hidden all along. There's a strange thing that happens when someone finally realizes their target was never confused. Awareness has a silent power that makes guilty people uncomfortable. Your calmness made them question every step of their plan. The lack of reaction from your side made their anxiety grow. And when anxiety grows, honesty leaks through fear. Their panic became the spotlight that showed who was controlling the narrative and who was losing control of themselves. Instead of looking victorious, they looked scared. Instead of looking confident, they looked exposed. Every secret they spilled came from their own mind collapsing under pressure. People who build their strategy on lies always believe they're smarter than the person they're trying to harm. This illusion keeps them bold. But once the truth begins pressing against their conscience, the confidence fades. Sleepless nights turn into nervous conversations. Fake calmness turns into shaky voices. The truth inside them fights for release, and their behavior gives it away long before any confession arrives. Secrets begin slipping not in arguments, but in the slightest reactions. Someone who thought they had the upper hand ends up revealing every move, because fear rearranges their personality. That unraveling becomes their downfall. Observers start noticing the shift too. When guilt eats someone alive, it shows in the way they speak about certain moments, in how their tone changes, in how they avoid eye contact whenever your name comes up. People can sense when something is off. They pick up on inconsistencies, mismatched details, strange corrections. Slowly, the story they tried to maintain dissolves. Their own actions turn into evidence. Their own words turn into clues. Their own defensiveness turns into confession. No outside force was needed. Their behavior stripped them bare without anyone needing to accuse them. A major reason secrets slip out is that those who plotted often underestimated their opponent. They thought silence meant weakness. They thought patience meant ignorance. They thought calmness meant vulnerability. But silence, when grounded in awareness, becomes a mirror. It forces the guilty to confront themselves. Your lack of retaliation gave their conscience too much room. In that quiet space, the mind reveals its own sins. People who harm others can hide from the world for a while, but they cannot hide from themselves. The weight becomes too heavy. Eventually, that weight leaks through their cracks. What made their breakdown even stronger was the contrast between the two energies. One side stayed grounded, composed, focused on growth. The other spiraled into panic, losing control of their narrative. That contrast made the truth easy to see. You didn't have to expose anything. Their behavior exposed everything. People naturally compare reactions. They see who remained stable and who fell apart. They see who communicated clearly and who stumbled over excuses. The stability you showed became the foundation that made their story collapse. Secrets spill fastest when someone realizes the person they targeted isn't returning to old habits. The moment they saw you setting boundaries, choosing peace, and stepping away from their influence, fear rose. That fear created confusion. Confusion created mistakes. And mistakes created exposure. They tried to regain control by sharing half-truths, but half-truths always reveal more than they hide. Their panic pushed them into revealing details they planned to take to the grave. By the time they realized what they had said, it was too late. Confession had already replaced manipulation. Their guilt intensified because your progress didn't match their predictions. They expected destruction. They expected chaos. They expected you to crumble. Instead, you upgraded. Growth creates pressure for people who tried to hold you down. It forces them to face what they did without being able to justify it. Watching someone thrive after harm is the biggest trigger for those who tried to cause it. That trigger forced their emotions into the open, and emotions under pressure do not stay silent. They expose the motives behind every action taken in the dark. Sometimes the truth comes out not because someone wants to admit it, but because their spirit can no longer support the story they've been carrying. Lies drain energy. Secrets create exhaustion. Hidden motives eat away at the inside until the mind seeks relief. That relief often comes through unplanned confessions or emotional slips. Even the strongest manipulators eventually break under the pressure of their own choices. Their breakdown wasn't a victory lap for you. It was a natural consequence of the life they were living. Panic always reveals what pride tries to hide. When a person who built their identity on control suddenly starts losing that grip, their behavior changes in ways they can't manage. The voice gets sharp, the excuses get messy, the energy becomes frantic. Insecurity has a way of leaking through the smallest cracks, especially when someone is trying too hard to appear composed. Their panic wasn't just a reaction to being caught. It was a confession of how fragile their confidence truly was. People who feel secure don't crumble under pressure. People who feel secure don't rush to defend themselves before anyone even questions them. Panic exposes the weaknesses they try to bury under their arrogance. Pressure reveals the truth faster than confrontation ever could. A person who has nothing to hide responds calmly because they trust their intentions. Someone carrying insecurity reacts as if every question is an attack. You might notice it in the way they explain something simple, or how they suddenly avoid conversations they used to dominate. Their tone becomes defensive even when no one is accusing them. That shift is the giveaway. It shows how much of their behavior was built on pretending rather than honesty. Panic forces them to drop the mask because insecurity cannot stay hidden when the environment demands authenticity. Insecurity shows itself through contradictions. One moment they speak with false confidence, trying to act unfazed. The next moment they slip into apology mode or overcorrect their behavior. That inconsistency becomes evidence of the internal chaos they are trying to manage. Their fear of losing control makes them expose every insecurity they once guarded. People around them start noticing the mismatch between their stories and their reactions. It becomes obvious who is grounded and who is shaking. Their panic didn't just reveal the plan. It revealed the kind of person they are beneath the surface. The emotional unraveling becomes even more visible when the person they targeted stops reacting. Without your emotional responses to feed off, they have nothing to lean on. Their insecurity grows louder because there is no distraction left. They relied on provoking reactions to keep their own anxiety hidden. Once you pulled away and responded with calmness, the spotlight shifted. Their behavior became the only thing anyone noticed. The frantic energy, the constant justification, the sudden need to rewrite history. In those moments, their insecurity became impossible to ignore. Panic made them transparent. Observing their behavior from a distance made everything clearer. When you are no longer emotionally involved, you start seeing patterns that were always there. The sudden outbursts, the defensive rants, the attempts to redirect attention. All of it circles back to insecurity. Confident people do not panic when someone steps into their strength. Only those who feared being exposed react that way. Their insecurities were never about you. They were about the image they were trying to protect. The moment that image cracked, panic rushed in and showed everyone what was hiding underneath. Real insecurity always shows itself in the way someone handles accountability. Those who are grounded admit mistakes, correct their actions, and move forward. Those who are insecure run, blame, deny, and create stories that fall apart the moment pressure touches them. Their panic made their insecurity loud because they couldn't accept responsibility without feeling like their entire identity was collapsing. The truth is simple. Desperate people reveal themselves through the chaos they create. Their panic didn't just show their fear. It showed their character. Even the people closest to them began noticing the shift. Relationships built on control started deteriorating because panic made them unreliable. They snapped at the wrong moments. They avoided responsibility. They projected guilt onto innocent people. Their insecurity infected the way they spoke, acted, and interacted. The mask they once wore so effortlessly became too heavy to hold up anymore. In a strange way, their own behavior told the story better than any words you could have said. Panic exposes liars faster than honesty ever can. There's a moment in every downfall where the person responsible realizes they are no longer steering the narrative. That realization creates the deepest panic. Their insecurities rise to the surface because they cannot rewrite what has already been revealed. They try to explain, justify, or pretend nothing has changed, but their body language betrays them. The shifts in expression, the forced laughter, the shaky hands, the restless eyes. Insecurity speaks through the body when the mind can no longer hold the lie together. Panic makes every hidden truth visible. Nothing compares to the clarity that comes from watching someone unravel under pressure they created themselves. It teaches you that insecurity hides behind confidence more often than we think. It teaches you that some people only look bold because they have never been truly tested. And it teaches you that a calm heart is more powerful than any plot. Panic cannot defeat clarity. Insecurity cannot overpower truth. Their breakdown was not your victory. It was the natural consequence of a life lived without accountability. Eventually, the panic settles, but the damage remains. People remember how someone behaves when the mask falls off. They remember the desperation, the contradictions, the fear. Most of all, they remember the insecurity that spilled out when the truth caught up. And that is the real exposure. Not the secrets they spilled, not the lies they revealed, but the fact that panic showed the world who they truly were. A person who plotted because they feared your strength. A person who hid because they feared being seen. And a person whose insecurities betrayed them long before you ever needed to speak. What became clearer with time was how much their reactions reflected their inner battles rather than the situation itself. That sudden rush to defend themselves, explain every detail, or blame someone else showed far more than any confession could. Their panic wasn't about you knowing the truth. It was about them realizing they could no longer hide from the truth themselves. When a person fears their own actions being seen clearly, every word they speak becomes a shield. And when a shield is held too tightly, the whole world sees the shaking. Insecurity always makes the loudest noise when exposure feels close. Fear always shows up when someone loses control over the narrative they created. At first, their behavior looked confident, almost calculated. But the moment things stopped going their way, the facade broke. Insecurity crept out through their body language, the rushing speech, the avoidance of eye contact, the heavy breathing, the sudden change in tone. None of this needed interpretation. It was the language of someone who had never built real confidence, only borrowed it from controlling the environment. When that environment collapsed, their insecurity surfaced instantly, raw and unfiltered. One of the clearest signs of insecurity is inconsistency. People who feel grounded communicate the same way, whether they are calm or under pressure. But those who fear being exposed shift their behavior, depending on who is watching. When panic hit them, their personality changed multiple times within minutes. Friendly 1 second, cold the next, then emotional, then distant. That unpredictability wasn't random. It was the result of someone trying desperately to find a version of themselves that looked innocent. Every switch exposed another layer of insecurity because confidence doesn't scramble for identity. Only fear does. Another truth revealed through their panic was how much they depended on keeping others confused. Once your clarity cut through their games, they had no backup plan. Their insecurity pushed them to talk too much, reveal too much, and react too quickly. People who feel secure do not rush to fill silence. They do not overshare. They do not panic when questioned. But someone hiding guilt cannot survive stillness. Stillness forces their mind to confront what they've done. And in that discomfort, the truth spills out in pieces they never intended to reveal. Panic always turns into honesty when insecurity runs the show. What ultimately exposed the depth of their insecurity was the way they feared your growth. The stronger you became, the more unstable they grew. Confidence in others threatens people who never built their own foundation. Watching you heal felt like a spotlight pointed at their flaws. Their panic wasn't just about being caught. It was about realizing they could no longer measure themselves against a version of you that tolerated their behavior. Your growth took away their only advantage, and without that advantage, their insecurities rose like smoke from a fire they started but could not control.